Alright, ladies and gentlemen, let's talk a little bit about soldering, whatever. First of all, preparation. As you can see, I'm just preparing my MOSFETs. I tend to go for a fixed position before soldering. This helps a lot. Anyway, you can use a third hand or clamps or whatever. If possible, I do it free-handed, but I have not learned this shit. So everything I tell you here is just based on experience and possibly wrong. So what I do is applying a lot of flux. This is resin flux. This stuff actually is quite fluid, like water, and helps to bond the materials. This stuff I'm actually using works quite fine. Next thing, I probably use too much heat, but I'm using lead-free soldering wire, which contains silver, I guess, and it needs a quite high temperature. And as you can see, I go for this free-handed. The temperature I'm using is about 400 degrees Celsius, which is, yeah, quite high, but I'm just working fast. If you're not too experienced, do it slow and low. If your wire is melting, that's fine, and don't go too high. You can actually look up the melting temperature of your wires, and you should have a little bit more. My experience is, even if you have soldering iron where you can see the temperature, like a digital one, most of the time this is probably a bit high and not the actual temperature on your iron itself. But well, maybe I'm wrong here. I got a good soldering iron, and possibly I'm just too stupid or too bad with this to actually make it with lower temperatures. Anyway, I like on high temperature that the piece I'm working on gets hot very fast, and I can just apply my solder very fast and then get off it. So I tend not to melt any plastics and stuff. Anyway, what I'm soldering here is very small. It's like MOSFETs, wires, this kind of stuff. And probably this is why it's working quite good if I go fast and hot. Alright, so remember, first thing, you need help from flux. This is crucial. Second thing, if you go for lead-free solder with silver in it, you need probably a higher temperature than if you go with a soldering wire which contains lead. If you want to find out if your soldering wire contains lead, just look on the table of contents where there should be an PB for plum bum, which is actually lead. Lead is something which is quite dangerous because your body is not able to get it out of your system again. So if you solder it and you just breathe it in, this is bad, because it will stick on your bones forever. And lead is quite heavy, you will feel you could get heavy bones from the snow. Actually, this is no joke. You can get poisoned by lead. Maybe not the second you solder it and take a deep breath, but it's actually not as funny as I describe it right now. Whatever, you will not do this all day, I guess, like me. So, silver solder without lead, flux, and possibly your soldering wire will contain a little bit of flux in it, flux core. This is also good. Next thing is get yourself a third hand or something else, like something to hold your wires while you have one hand for your soldering iron, maybe the other hand for the other wire or something. If you can use a lot of flux, just solder one part, then solder the other one, so both of them have solder on it, and then you just hold them together and solder them together. This is more easy than just holding two parts together and then putting the soldering wire on it and hope for the best. Make sure your solder just soaks in the material. This is crucial, because if it does not, you will just be able to tear out your wires from your connector or something else. This is called the cold solder joint. Well, actually, a cold solder joint is when both of your materials don't do a real connection. So you just wiggle around your solder joint a little bit to check this out. It's very bad if you can just tear out your cables. This is why I tend to solder the cable first, then I solder the point where I want to solder it on, and then I solder them together. And the moment when both solder points connect, you can see very clearly. And this is the moment you get your iron away and let it cool down. So what we got here is something else I've built to make it easier. Like a third hand, but better. First of all, if you're going to resolder a battery, you should actually cut one of the wires, not both. I know a lot of people coming to me telling me, oh yes, my first LiPo battery, I killed it, I cut both of the wires while trying to get a better plug on it. This is something avoidable, and I hope you will. First thing, we just give a little bit of solder on the plug and a little bit on the wire. And do not forget the shrinking tube. As you may have seen, I already added it. So, and now we just fix it together, and the moment these two materials bond, we get away the soldering iron. Now we shrink it and we add the next cable. Next thing to show you is the soldering iron. This here looks bad. It should look silver and shiny, a little bit like the other side, not too good. What do we do now? We just scrap away all the bad material. If we did this, we can just use this cleaning stuff to re-solder it a little bit. Or we could just use a soldering wire. But this cleaning stuff is way better. So, no. Come on, Cam. Give me a good view. I'm very sorry. God damn it. Come on. Now, this looks a lot better. Not perfect anyway, but a lot better. Okay. Okay, so this is actually looking a lot better. We can just add new layer now, and it works like a charm. Okay, we're adding the plus cable on the new DIN plug now. This time we're doing it a little bit differently. So no tinning this time. I will not apply solder to the cable or the DIN plug to show you that it actually works quite fine if you use flux. And yeah, as you can see, it takes a little bit more time, it looks a little bit cleaner, and that's it. Whatever you prefer. Whatever you prefer. Oh boy. Okay. You can use like a heat gun for this stuff, but I prefer a lighter. So that's it. Finished.